Hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement and a very special X-Men Days of Future Past 10-year anniversary look back edition of My Mom's Basement. With me is my co-host Clem. As always, I didn't have a fancy X-Men intro for you this time. It's not the X-Men 97 finale like last week, but Clem, I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy to talk about Days of Future Past.
Yeah, we got to dig into this one a little more. Like, I don't think the word's grounded, but I mean, this movie starts off and you're just like, "What the fuck's going on?" So it's kind of good to like not get into a crazy happy place because it does not start happy in this film. Holy cow!
No, and it hits the ground running. Like I hadn't watched
Yeah,
this in years. I forgot to the level of like you're 5 minutes in there, like, here's the plot. Remember, we're going to time travel. Like they're real intense right up front. But I did mention it's the 10-year anniversary. This week, we're recording this on May 24th. It came out on May 23rd, 2014. Complete coincidence that we're doing this on the 10-year anniversary week. I know it's not Star Wars, but I'd like to think it's the Force.
let's use time travel, Bob, and go back and record this on May 23rd. Ready? The audience won't know any different. Anyone watching on YouTube is going to look exactly the same, but all right, we're recording this on the 10-year anniversary of X-Men Days of Futures Past. Unbelievable timing. We did not plan this out, but it's literally the 10-year anniversary. It's crazy.
So it being the 10-year anniversary, I was curious if this falls into the range of like new dad Clem, where were you seeing this in theaters? Did you like see this when it came out? What was your experience with Days of Future Past?
This I saw in the theaters, and this this is probably like this might be the. I don't think it's this one. I think it maybe did Gone Girl come out in 2024? Yes, Gone Girl was the last
2014.
2014. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus. There's the current dad brain. I still remember to this day. Gone Girl is the last movie I saw in the movie theater because then it's like
As a
I
free
didn't see a
man.
movie. Yeah, because I didn't like see a movie again for like 5 years. It feels like in the theaters. So this is probably like the second or third to last movie I saw. So I definitely saw it in the theater. Huge X-Men guy. Went in with like super high expectations, and I have to admit, when I saw it in the theater, I was a little disappointed, and I liked it more on the rewatch.
Oh, wow. I'm happy to hear you liked it more. I had not the same experience, but kind of a similar experience. I remember I saw this one with my friends, and it was the first one I saw with my friends. X-Men movies were always like a me and my brother thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
he was working, I had school. We didn't see this one together. And I remember so many of my friends being like, that was the best X-Men movie ever. I can't believe they did that best comic book movie ever. I'd put it right there with The Dark Knight. And I left the theater really enjoying the movie, but having to be like, all right, everyone, let's calm down. Like, that wasn't The Dark Knight. And I hate being put in that position. You know, I want to be with everybody, but everyone's talking about, like, I was like, even like, I really liked it. I don't know if I like it as much as First Class. I don't know if I like it as much as X2. I think it's maybe below that tier for me, but I love it. I mean, the fact that you unite the two timelines and you have the Professor X's meet in this movie and you have Logan time traveling and being in his 70s attire. Like, there's so many things about the movie that I absolutely love. I do think they did a great job with it, especially considering the Days of Future Past comic storyline isn't completely adaptable in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can get into like the timeline stuff later, but if you wanted to have Kitty Pryde as the main character as she is in the comic or in the X-Men 97 and stuff like that, or the original, not 97. If you wanted to do that, it wouldn't work with the old timeline. She would be -20 by the time the First Class crew, like, so the fact that they were able to rearrange things and put that puzzle back together and have it be cohesive and easy to understand, again, like we complimented X-Men 97 about, some of these storylines aren't the easiest to understand. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, and again, 2014, obviously, internet was churning along, and you had like movie insider stuff. So I'm sure we knew like how just crazy the cast was having the old and the new, and everyone loved, I think, Days of Future, not Days of Future's Past, First Class. So it was like, all right, that cast crushed it. Obviously, the original X-Men cast crushed it. So putting them together, I feel like I probably would have been super stoked. Like it's kind of what we're getting with like the Deadpools and the Spider-Man movies, where you're getting these old and different casts and mashing them together, multiverse style. We're kind of getting that with just time travel here. So I mean, I feel like I liked it, but my biggest issue, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, was I felt like they focused way too much on Mystique. I was like, I didn't realize Mystique was going to be that big of a character. I think they kind of like struck gold with Jennifer Lawrence. They're like, well, we're just going to steer into Jennifer Lawrence being a superstar, and we have her under contract. When I rewatched, I was like, oh, it wasn't as crazy as I thought.
No, I had like in my notes though, every time Mystique came up, it felt like in the comic it would say like, meanwhile, Mystique.
Yeah.
Like everyone is doing something, and then they would be like, by the way, Mystique is still, snooping around those files. And you're like, oh, okay.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I didn't like the transitions where they kind of just jammed everything in, and it's just like, oh, here she is again. That's probably what obviously, if you're writing the notes about it, it says the same. The thing is, when we're rewatching, then writing the notes, I don't notice that stuff as much. And but it's kind of like when Andy Bernard became like a superstar with The Hangover, and the office is like, well, I guess Andy's going to get some more scenes now because he's fucking Steve Carell kind of blew up in a similar way. So all in all, I'd say this definitely aged better than some of the other. And for me personally, I mean, we'll probably get into reviews at the end. I think I might have it as my number. It's number 2 or 3 X-Men movie. I know everyone goes X2, like 1 or 2 and then First Class right there as well. It's either this is 2 behind First Class or 3 for me.
Wow. All right. So this is going to be a happy review. We're not going to be shitting on this one. We're not going to be talking Apocalypse. We're not going to be talking X-Men Origins. We're going to be talking the good X-Men movies on the road to Deadpool and Wolverine.
And I'm still throwing around the idea. I had like a self monologue with me in the car in my brain the other yesterday, where I'm like, what are we going to do with the Wolverines and Logan? And like you said, maybe we just watch the YouTube for the catch-ups and maybe actually watch Logan. We're going to figure that out. We have 2 months to decide. We have a billion different things coming up in the nerd world in terms of content. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I feel like you're in the same boat, right? Like we're like, there is no way we are going to the Dark Phoenix. And
Dark Phoenix not happening.
Like, listen to our X-Men 97 reviews. That's what this podcast used to be about. Just happy nerds, just having fun, getting crazy with it. I don't like what we became during this phase of the MCU. I do not like it. And people are like, man, it's so nice. Like, you guys just have so much more juice when you're reviewing good stuff. It's like, yeah, it doesn't feel like a job when we're doing that, right?
No, it doesn't. Let's get into the kind of layout of X-Men Days of Future Past. Again, like all of the X-Men recaps we've been doing, a lot of this information, almost all of it, is from the the Days of Future Past Wikipedia and the IMDb trivia page for Days of Future Past. Both great spots if you're looking to learn even more about the movie. Directed by Bryan Singer. They brought him back. They also brought back Simon Kinberg. The story was by Kinberg, Jane Goldman, and our boy Matthew Vaughn, who was at one point attached to direct this movie, of course, after he directed First Class, and it did super well, very successful. Like I said, it came out on May 23rd, 2014, 2 hours and 12 minutes. There is a longer cut that makes it the longest X-Men movie ever at like 2 hours, 32 minutes. It's called the Road Cut. We'll get into that in a little bit. The budget was $200 million. You double it for marketing, $400 million. It made $262 million on opening weekend. It's the biggest ever for an X-Men movie before Deadpool came out. They consider those X-Men movies. And the total gross was $746 million. So this I found very interesting. It made $746 million, almost $1 billion, 3/4 of the way to $1 billion on a $200 million budget. But Deadline Hollywood calculated that the actual net profit of the movie was only $77 million, accounting for production budgets, P&A, talent participation, other costs. Everything about that movie seems like, oh my God, it made the most money ever. $77 million for the studio. Kind of crazy. I expected at least a couple $100 million in net profit.
I wonder if that's why the other X-Men movies started sucking, because they had to change up whatever they're doing behind the scenes.
They were like, we can't keep casting these like Oscar-winning actors as the X-Men. This movie I think it's tied for like the most Oscar-nominated actors or Oscar winners in a comic book movie. It's like tied with The Dark Knight. It's crazy.
By the way, the Dark Knight thing is so perfect, Bob, because I know you are the guy who likes being like, that was awesome, but you're also not the guy who's like, that was better than The Dark Knight. So there's two different sides here. That's Two-Face Bob right there.
This one was received super well by critics and audiences, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes for critics, 91% for audience. So everyone was pretty aligned on this one. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the thing too, is like when you look at Rotten Tomatoes, we've talked about this before with the movie rankings versus Rotten Tomatoes thing. That is the percentage of people who liked it. People aren't saying I rated it a 9 out of 10. But when you look at it, like, yeah, I don't know what you wouldn't like from this movie. Like the Mystique stuff that you pointed out, like that is a weird, like it feels a little separated from the rest of the movie. But the rest of it, it moves. It's got a great cast. It's got plenty of great action sequences, good scenes, good set pieces. I understand that.
No, the reason it surprises me, so on the dozen, sometimes there'll be like Rotten Tomato score for a movie, right? And when I'll immediately be like what I thought of the movie, and then I'll think how critics would rate it, right? And you're gonna always have like the douchebag critics with a comic book movie, didn't like it, didn't even probably see it, right? They probably spent 2 hours watching some fucking fancy art movie in the theaters, and so it's I always, that's why I'm always shocked when a movie that is good, objectively good, is like given love by people who might be kind of dicks about it.
Yeah, speaking of dicks, Bryan Singer did return to direct this one, but he withdrew from all marketing and promo a month before the release when he was hit with a lawsuit for sexual assault. Really horrific stuff in the lawsuit. I think this was kind of the first domino to fall for him in terms of, I don't know if he was publicly accused of any of this horrific stuff before this. Before production began, Bryan Singer actually met with James Cameron to discuss this movie and to discuss time travel and the string theory. They said Terminator 2 was a huge inspiration for this movie, which I guess I could see with Logan in the Terminator role. I mean, he does wake up naked.
I am looking at his Wikipedia right now, Bryan Singer, that is. And so like, 2014, the allegations come out, I guess, right before the movie premieres, and you're like, well, fuck, like that's crazy, take him off the thing. The only problem with that is then he came back, he was involved with, he did XMen Apocalypse in 2016 and then Dark Phoenix in 2019, which, oh yeah, there was a 2017 lawsuit where he was allegedly raped a 17-year-old. Like, what the fuck?
And then after all that, he got to fucking direct the Queen movie. He did Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, he did Bohemian Rhapsody. So,
and he had tons of issues on that set too. Rami Malek hated his guts on that set.
Oh my God.
Bad guy. We hate Bryan Singer. We're an anti-Bryan Singer podcast.
You said he's a dick. Yeah,
any compliments we give to this movie, it goes to the cast and the crew and not Bryan Singer.
Any good part of this movie is because Matthew Vaughn wrote it. That's how I
yes.
think of it in my head.
Let's get into Matthew Vaughn, his original involvement in this. He was originally slated to direct it. But he wanted to do a movie in between First Class and this. He wanted this to be the kind of like finale of his trilogy. He wanted to do an X-Men trilogy where he wanted First Class to be his like 60s movie. He wanted to do a 70s movie with that same cast and also bring in a young Wolverine. I don't know how that would have worked if they would have done multiversal stuff, because obviously we see Hugh Jackman Wolverine in First Class, but he wanted Tom Hardy to play a young Logan. Immediately I read that, I'm like, oh my God, Matthew Vaughn was fucking cooking with that script, wasn't he? And yeah, he was like, I think we should unite the casts in the finale of the trilogy. That should be the big culmination of everything. And he wrote both scripts. And apparently when he handed in the scripts, they were like, this Days of Future Past script is too good. We're doing it right now. And that pissed him off a little bit. He went and did Kingsman. He also went and produced the Fantastic Four movie in 2015. That is really just panned across the board. And he has since said he would be open to directing a reboot of the Fantastic Four as an apology for that movie.
I like that. I didn't know this whole thing about the 3 movies. It's like, God damn it. Like, the idiots.
We could add the Vaughn trilogy.
But at the Vaughn trilogy, it's like he crushed the first one, and obviously he wrote this one, and anything good in this movie is because of him. And that fucking 70s movie sounds awesome.
Yeah.
God damn it. Like,
they pulled some things from it too. The JFK stuff in this movie where they, we'll get into it with Magneto and stuff. The 70s movie was supposed to open with showing that, which would have been interesting. Also, I read that and I was like, I don't know if you could open with a superhero causing JFK assassination scene after Watchmen did that, and they did it so well.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you were going to say
that's like how Watchmen opens is the comedian shoots JFK to the Times That Are Changing by Bob Dylan. It's so good.
Yeah. That's actually, I thought you were going to say you just can't do that in general with like showing JFK getting his head blown off in 4K. Darren Revell did that Tuesday at 8 a.m.
I was going to say, Darren Revell, he has kicked that door open for all of us.
Oh, man. Sometimes I think about Darren Revell. I just like, that guy, it was just like utter content, just watching him operate the whole Martin Luther King Day stuff. I mean, just everything about him, just the weirdest, strangest. Jake, our sweet Jake Bass, not Jake Bass,
Jeff Lowe.
No. Jake Marsh. He
Oh,
got the
yeah.
job to basically be our Darren Ravel. It's like it's
Yeah.
Banana Land. So yeah, the JFK stuff I love. Again, anything history where you're getting some history sprinkled in, and there's a bunch of it in this movie.
There's a lot. The Vietnam stuff too, like the mentions of Vietnam. Vaughn's second movie was going to focus on Vietnam and like civil rights and stuff like that with the mutants. Would have been a perfect backdrop for him. You could still do that one day. I don't know if you could do it with this cast, but a 70s X-Men movie sounds sweet.
I mean, let's be honest. It sounds like it would have been the perfect movie. I'm going to say it right now.
Yeah.
That movie would have been better than Dark Knight. It would have lined up perfect. It would have lined up perfectly too, because it would have been the second movie, right?
Yeah.
True. It really, and then it does when it's the trilogy, and it's like it's not like this is obviously the second one, but when you do hammer it home and that's the end of it, where the characters, the old and the new meet, and there's an extra movie to go with the old characters, so they are a little more, ingrained in your soul. Man, fuck Fox, they really fucked this up. I'm really upset right now. I'm happy I didn't read this when I was doing my research.
They fucked it up a little. The score is by John Ottman. He returned from X2. He also brings back the X-Men theme from X2. It's the first time they bring back a theme, first time they bring back a composer. He also edited the movie, which I found super interesting, to take on two massive workloads of composing the score and editing the entire movie. Kind of fascinating. Shout out John Ottman.
He worked for Barstool?
He was like a big part of this movie, yeah.
That's fucking craziness. How do you have I hate that, man. I hate people who have that kind of shit in their bag that can do both, let alone do both well. I can't do either of those things. I don't even know where to start. And that guy
was the Thanos meme. He was Age of Ultron Thanos, where he's like, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, fucking do it myself.
It is the first X-Men movie to be nominated for an Oscar, an Academy Award. It was nominated for Best Visual Effects. It unfortunately lost to Interstellar, understandably so. It has 1,311 visual effects shots in the movie, produced by 12 different studios. And shout out to Richard Stammers, the VFX supervisor on the movie. It was also shot in Montreal, Canada, under the working title Hello Kitty. That made me giggle. I was like, oh, the Kitty Pride thing. Hello Kitty's the working title. Of course, it's based on Days of Future Past, the comic storyline. It's Uncanny X-Men 141 and 142. As we mentioned, they couldn't focus on Kitty Pryde as much because of the timelines. Bishop and Cable were both really heavily considered as like the time traveler. But then they decided on Logan. They were like, he's ageless, timeless, whatever. He's perfect. Rachel Summers was also in the original script. So they were, it sounds like the original script, someone had to like rein it in. Because I bet they were starting to get a little confusing with their X-Men timeline, time travel shit. And then someone grabbed it and they were like, cut that. I think this will be easier to understand.
There was a time when Wolverine goes from the past back to the present, and I start like losing it. I'm like, wait, I was all good. Everything was good in my brain, and now it's fucked up again. So I can only imagine what's like writing those words down and not having it on a screen in front of you. So that makes sense. You mentioned the comic books. I have to find my comics. I have a couple of my boxes of comics. I have to see I think I have the first reprint of the first X-Men. I have to get right here. I'm pretty sure I have the X-Men #1, the Stanley, the Jim Lee one I have as well. I have the Fatal Attraction, which obviously just happened in X-Men 97. And I have to buy the Days of Futures Past one, even if it's just a reprint. Like Jose says, it'll be behind the glass if I go to a store. Yeah. I could live with like a $5 reprint. That's fine. That's one thing, actually, that's one nitpick I had in this. I wish we had that poster from the cover somewhere where it's like deceased, or like the fact that they did in X-Men 97. Like, you do a fucking movie about it. Can't you just throw it in the background of something there? I don't know. I guarantee if Matthew Vaughn was the director of this movie, he would have had that fucking poster somewhere in it. It's iconic for us.
So they tried to recreate those a little bit, like a nod to it, with the actual official posters for the movie. So what they did was they would put the original actor with an X and then the younger actor inside. And there were a couple good ones, but with them being the X-Men as it is, it's almost hard to tell that it's supposed to be the Days of Future Past, cover. Yeah, they did it a lot better, I feel like, in X-Men 97 in the finale, where they had like all of the mutants on the board. Who was it? Was it Bishop looking at him, or Someone else?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
Bishop and someone else.
That was better, but I agree. It could have been cool.
George.
Like even in that post-apocalyptic world in the beginning, if you had the wanted posters and everything with the X,
Yeah,
that would have been cool.
that's such a fucking. And again, this whole thing with the Matthew Vaughn stuff. This is gonna be like the overarching thing in my brain for the rest of the day, if not all Memorial Day weekend. This gives me more like hope about Deadpool 3 being that fucking good. Because again, this guy knows what good stuff is. And if you can't hire Matthew Vaughn to do shit in the MCU, hire more Matthew Vaughns in this world,
Yeah.
Kevin Feige, to do your future projects instead of whoever the fuck you hired the last couple of years. Because it's incredible. I love this shit, man.
Yeah. Hire more Eric Martins as well. Hire more Michael Waldrons as well.
Yes.
Those guys, their brains work in different ways where I feel like they see the multiverse all spread out. They can connect it in their head like Queen's Gambit. Like they see it on the ceiling and they're like, boom, there it is. I know how to give this to an audience.
And hire a Robbie Fox and a Clem just to be extra somewhere. Just
Please.
2 idiots in the back.
We would love that. So the Rogue cut, which I mentioned, it features 17 minutes of additional footage and a Rogue subplot. We see Rogue for maybe 2 seconds at the end of the movie with Bobby when Logan wakes up. She was more of a part of this movie. She is one of the top billed cast members as well, Anna Paquin. I've seen the Rogue cut. I honestly don't know if I could say that it's like more worth watching than the actual movie. It features a plot where they have to like break Rogue out of, is it the X Mansion? They have to break her out of like
Cerebro.
prison.
I think she's stuck
Cerebro.
in Cerebro.
Yeah, she's stuck in Cerebro. They got to break her out. Bobby like dies during this. He sacrifices himself. They do get her out. I think Rogue has legitimately 4 lines in the Rogue cut. So it's not like she becomes like a focal point. Just the idea of getting her back to Prison Break kind of becomes a focal point, which is a little redundant when you have the Pentagon Prison Break. Like maybe they wanted them to go side by side, and that would be poetry. It rhymes. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like necessarily worth it. Also, like Storm and Wolverine have a little bit of a romance plot.
Oh, and that there is that one timeline where they are like lovers,
Yeah.
right? So that I can understand that. I never even knew the Rogue cut existed until I was reading. It's like, oh shit, that was a thing. So again, that was probably once all the Rogue cut talk was going on. I was changing diapers, not sleeping. Doing a bunch of stuff. I was working my ass, and then any minute I wasn't taking care of a new human or working, I was trying to get hired at Barstool. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on in my life at that point. So yeah, 2014 and on is a blur at this point.
I do like Rogue as a character. Also, her like being there, it just like I think it complicated things a little too much to have her there. And credit to Anna Paquin, she was completely fine getting cut. She got interviewed about it. She was like, yeah, I got to be on set with all my friends, got to reunite with everyone. It is what it is. Like that's Hollywood.
And I think Rogue in the movies isn't like Rogue in the cartoon, right? Where she is such like a huge fucking massive figure and she has all the goddamn lines. And let's be honest, like her powers, her strength, and all that other shit could help against the Sentinels. She can't suck up she can't kill them by touching them. They're robots. Yeah. So kind of a big trump card that Rogue has on people.
And since we are on the road to Deadpool and Wolverine, and there's a lot of Taylor Swift Dazzler rumors, I thought it was worth bringing up that they actually announced Lady Gaga as the Dazzler in this movie as an April Fool's Day joke in 2014 or maybe 2013 while they were on set. Kind of interesting that we're repeating this 10 years later with whoever the biggest pop star in the world is. Maybe they'll play Dazzler rumors. Stan Lee was also offered a cameo in this one, but allegedly turned it down so he could attend a fan expo in Toronto. I'd like to think my headcanon is that he was like, fuck you, Bryan Singer. I ain't showing up.
Yeah, we're going to roll with that one. I choose to believe that as well. I just don't want to think of anybody just turning down a cameo in an X-Men movie. We're also Bryan Singer coming with an April Fool's joke for Lady Gaga and Dazzler. Just such a Bryan Singer thing to do. You suck.
Before we get into the actual plot breakdown and go by the movie scene by scene, let's tell the people about Game Time. I was actually just on the Game Time app looking at Chicago because I'm going to Chicago soon. The amount of concerts happening in Chicago this summer are pretty crazy. At Soldier Field especially, you get cheap tickets for all of them. Billie Eilish at the United Center, $114 gets you in the building. George Strait and Chris Stapleton, legendary show. You see a legend of modern day country, a legend of country in general. $97 gets you into that one. Metallica with Pantera, huge metalhead
Oh.
show. $112 gets you into Soldier Field. That is why Game Time is the best in the biz, and that is why they are the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Also, we're in the Rangers right now. You get Rangers tickets. You get tickets to Dallas and Edmonton. If you're a West Coast listener, you shouldn't have to worry about buying your tickets to the next big event. Game Time is going to make it easy for you. They've got flash deals for sudden discounts, zone deals when you're feeling flexible, and their lowest price guarantee, which means that if you can find the same seats for less anywhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can get 60% off your favorite events last minute. It's amazing. I would go see that Metallica show. I saw Metallica live a few years ago, and they still got it. You know, their drummer Lars, he has his off nights, he has his on nights, but I promise you it's still a good time. Take the guesswork. Go ahead, Clem.
No, I might hit a double dip when I'm in Chicago for the dozen tournament. I'm hoping Mets, Cubs during the day, Billy Joel, and
Stevie Nicks. That's
night.
Right. We talked about that. You get your tickets on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code MMB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Love Game Time. Shout out Game Time. Shout out
Shadow Faith. I just heard of Faith.
Yeah.
Wow.
Faith is chilling. She's happy to have me home. It's Friday, Memorial Day weekend. I told her I'm home for the whole weekend before I have to leave her for Chicago next week.
This is her first cameo, I feel, at least with me. That's my first time.
Is it? Come here, Faith. Come
Faith,
here.
say hi to the folks. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's Faith weekend.
She's getting big.
Oh my God, yeah, she is.
Say hi, Faith. She's sniffing the mic. Oh, what a cute girl. What a cute girl she looks like.
I think we have our thumbnail for the week, Bob.
Here, lift up a little bit so we can get a thumbnail, Faith. All right, if you're not watching on YouTube, you got to go on YouTube because I know all dog owners say this, but
really make it weird.
My dog really is so damn cute. There it is. There's our thumbnail for this week. There we go. All right, let Dad pop.
Oh, delightful.
That was the first time I've had my kids interrupt the show.
There you go. Yeah. My kids are upstairs, and I've been holding my breath that they don't come on the whole time. Turns out it's Memorial Day weekend. Bring your kids to work day. I love it.
All right, let's get into this movie. The 20th Century Fox logo with the little XMen jingle on it to kick things off. Nice little touch. I love when movies will change that up a little bit. Like I love when Into the Spider-Verse, they do like the Columbia logo, and then it like glitches for a second, stuff like that. That's good. And they did a really good job kicking the movie off with like the dark, desolate future that we've seen in X-Men comics and X-Men cartoons so much. Like they made it truly look like scenes out of a comic book when there's all the mutants like walking in that line. People said you could see a old version of Quicksilver in that line. I didn't catch him, but little cameos here and there. And I love that X-Men versus Sentinels scene to kick things off, where you get like a lot of the B-list X-Men get to shine here and show off their powers and ways that we haven't seen them before. They get to shine until, of course, they don't because they're B-list characters with no plot armor. So the Sentinels are able to take them all down. I believe the Sentinels, the future Sentinels, are a bit controversial because their design looks a little different from the original Sentinels, and they obviously have that Mystique-like ability where they could like change and stuff. Do you like these Sentinels? I think they're terrifying when the fucking face opens up and shit. They look like aliens more than anything.
Yeah, I think when I first saw it, I was like, oh, man, because I do love those old big purple lugs, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense that as time would go on, they'd adapt and get sleeker and, you know, more powerful and just better, right? And upgrade. And that's exactly what this one does. So, like, these things are a fucking problem by the time we get to the end
actually
of the
2023 Sentinels as well. That's what year the future is supposed to take place. It's like kind of like Back to the Future now, where you're like, oh, we're past the future.
When I saw that year, and I guess it does check out considering this movie was filmed 10 years ago. So, and all these characters have to be alive from the original movies, obviously. And I'm like, fuck, we're past Days of Future Past at this point. And I thought the same thing, Bob. Back to the Future 2 was like the first moment I was like, man, I'm old.
Is that 2015 or 2016?
Yeah, it's 2015. 2015.
Yeah.
It goes 55, 85, 15 are the three like checkpoints in the original too. So my favorite part of this was I think it opens up with we go right through the Empire State Building. It has a big old hole in its chest because it has no fucking heart. It's a front running skyscraping piece of shit.
I can't believe that they tried to take Hayden Christensen from us and do an Empire Strikes Back day. That was fucked.
You know that fucking there's probably old tweets of the Empire State Building say he fucking, Jedi was better or some shit. It's just a burning building. Knicks fans be like, oh, it's an orange and blue. That fucker was wearing Nets colors a couple years ago, you clowns. Get that shit out of my face.
Get it out of our face. In the comics, for those that don't know, the Sentinels wiped out more than just the mutants. They wiped out Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Iron Man, Hulk, the Fantastic Four. Sentinels are a fucking issue, absolute issue in the comics.
Problem. They are a problem. And I hate to say it, I kind of love that there is like that the Sentinels do have that body count in a multiverse.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a problem.
Don't let them get out of control. That's like a big, like, the stakes of this are like the Sentinels can get to the point where we're fucked. Like, everyone's fucked. Not just the mutants, not just the X-Men, not our family, all the superheroes in the world.
And meanwhile, in real life, we have AI getting accused by Scarlett Johansson of taking her voice. They're coming for Black Widow in real life. It's fucking
Shout out ScarJo. That was a good statement she put out when they tried to take her voice. She was not having it. I liked that. Kitty Pryde and Bishop travel to the future where Professor X, Magneto, Storm, Logan, they're all in China. Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were actually together in a touring production of a show called Waiting for Godot. Godot, I don't know. When they got approached to reprise their roles, they said they were genuinely shocked. They thought, like, we passed these roles on to Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, and everyone loved them. So they thought, like, when everyone loved them, yeah, we're probably not getting the call again. But they were thrilled to come back, as was Halle Berry. But Halle Berry's role was substantially reduced because she was pregnant at the time of filming. So due to her pregnancy, she couldn't be on set as much. But they still got a good amount out of her. Like that scene at the end, especially where she's fucking using the Storm and then she gets stabbed. Oh my God. That's like watching Storm get stabbed. I didn't know how much it would hurt my heart until it happened.
I forgot that happens in the movie. So when I saw it again, I was like, what the fuck?
I felt like she was my teacher. Like I felt like I was one of her students. And I was like, no, Miss Storm.
Miss Storm. I was wondering why. I was like, I feel like there's not a lot of Storm in this. I didn't know if because Halle Berry had reached a point where she just had to show up a few times. That makes a lot more sense. And it just really has to be said. I mean, one last time here, unless maybe they make an appearance in Deadpool 3, just how good the original Professor X and Magneto were. The actors just crushed them, McKellen and Stewart. So, just such a good, like they play that role so good where it's like, they're both are very much on different sides, but they could be buddies. But I mean, especially Magneto's it's just incredible.
And I love the dynamic between even the young Magneto and Professor X in this movie. The scene on the plane, which we'll get to.
Yes.
So fucking good. So good. They really, it's like a miracle that they cast them as well as they did. Because it was like, with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, it's like, you're never going to get better than them. And in fairness, you never are going to get better than them. But oh my God, Fassbender and McAvoy got really close. Really, really close to that level.
You know that wherever that whiteboard is right now, or they plan on the next X movie, it's like those are the two big names that they wrote down for it. We got to hit this. We got to hit this. Even in X-Men 97, it's like, nope, we're going to have all the other guys in there, but it boils down to Professor X and Magneto doing that shit, right? And that's kind of how the story, the comic.
They're destined to do it forever.
Yeah. There was a part of me that as I'm watching this and we're in that like Chinese whatever it is, I'm like, is this camouflage? I was like,
it could have been. Yeah, it kind of looked like that.
Is it supposed to be that? Because it is that now, but that was before the MCU had, and so my whole brain, I have no idea. Also, just stepping on Iceman's frozen head. Metal.
Metal. There's a lot of metal moments in this movie, not just the Magneto stuff. But they do get right into it with the time travel talk. The Trask backstory, Mystique killing him, how we got here with the future, the Mystique blood being used to help the Sentinels. Professor X wants to go back in time and stop this. But Kitty Pryde tells him, like, you wouldn't be able to survive me sending you back in time with the, I'm going to send your mind back. It's going to go in your body. It'll be the same. But then what you do affects our future. They don't quite do the Avengers thing where they're like, forget everything you know. It's our timeline. Like, they do use, like, movie time travel laws. But this scene has a little bit of a feel of, like, sweep it under the rug. Don't think about it too much. Just let's get into the time travel stuff. And Logan, of course, volunteers because he's not going to be killed by this. And Charles and Eric say, you got to find us. Xavier warns that he didn't have his powers in 1973, which is like, what do you mean you didn't have your powers in 1973? Magneto warns that his location is complicated. So you're like, oh God, what are we getting into with this? The whole stuff with the sending the mind into blah, blah, blah. Not really important. The ending does get a little confusing, though. We'll get into that with the ending. I don't want to skip ahead too much. The script also had Logan waking up in the 70s in his boxers, just wearing boxers, nothing but boxers. And Hugh Jackman said, in Australia, if you're next to a really good-looking girl, you're not getting out with boxer shorts on or briefs or anything. So he said, I think I should be naked in that scene. And he got his wish. The woman does call him Jimmy in that scene, too. That's a nod to his birth name, James Howlett. That was his birth name in the comics and everything. And he takes on his father's name, Thomas Logan.
What's his name? Hugh Jackman is like, I work too damn hard on this body just to be throwing a pair of boxer shorts. And hey, God bless you for that, Wolverine. I just
maybe
love
he threw on boxers and he looks silly in them. You know, like some people just look silly in boxers. And he's like, I can't do this.
I also love Professor X being like, listen, I was a different person back then. I'm like, that's a dude. I'm telling you, I'm staying on this island. And the island, I'm telling you, it's appreciated a little in value. The stock has gone up a little after this one. That's a guy who knows he has some skeletons in the closet, and it's more than just being an addict or whatever you want to call, whatever he's doing there. With
the long hair, there was some rock star vibes, and rock stars in the 70s don't have the best reputation, I would say.
Telling you, Professor X, he's lucky there wasn't like social media around back then, because the shit he was probably posting, problematic. Our beloved Xavier.
Although there wasn't social media around, later we got into cameras start being around in France. Is that in France, right? When people start filming Mystique jumping out the window and shit? Yeah,
it's in Paris. Yep.
Logan's a smartass with these thugs, these goons that walk into the room right away. They're like, you're supposed to be guarding the boss's daughter, not sleeping with her. He's like, oh, yeah, I slept with her. I didn't sleep with her tonight. I slept with her. He's typical Logan. Just
didn't do much sleeping, if you know what I mean. Hey,
Bub, yeah. Like, bubbing it up the second these guys walk into the room. They just open fire on him. He's not healing as quick as he can because, boom, he's got the bone claws. Remember, this is pre-Striker Logan. So he puts the bone claws out, and I think it hurts a little more than usual. I love the bone claws. Like, I don't want bone claws 24/7, but when you give us, like, we've had a couple movies of the adamantium claws. You give us a movie with the fucking bone claws. Ironically, it's metal.
Very metal. Extremely metal. I'm hoping we get the bone claws in X-Men 97 season 2. Or is it X-Men 98? I don't know how that's all working.
Oh, yeah, we probably will.
Are you sure she ain't getting the metal?
Unless like, tell you that, Magneto's gonna have to do surgery where he puts all the metal back in. It's gonna be hard to do.
So and shout out to the casting director. You couldn't get 3 better goons for a movie.
Yeah,
those goons. Those guys were born to play goons in a movie. It was unreal.
Then we get the Trask courtroom scene. The first scene with Trask, Peter Dinklage as Trask. Shout out. New Jersey guy, Jersey's own.
Oh.
He tries to use Vietnam to scare the government into greenlighting the Sentinel program. They tell him it ain't gonna fly. Dinklage perfectly cast for this movie, and he said he was cast because he wanted, or maybe Singer wanted, or the writers wanted Trask to have an insecurity about his dwarfism, where he is almost like he feels different along with the mutants, but takes it out on the mutants because of that. I thought that was a really unique casting, and obviously this is height of Game of Thrones being on top of the world, so it makes sense that he was getting a huge comic book movie here.
I thought it was awesome the first time we seen it. Like, oh, yep, that works out perfect.
He's personally everything, isn't he? Like, I don't know if I've ever seen Peter Dinklage where I was like, oh, he was okay. Every time I see him in anything, I'm like, he was awesome.
He was awesome. And yeah, he's good at what he does. There's no other way around it. Personally, I think shouting out Boulevard Trask being from New Jersey is fucked up. But hey, whatever you say, Bob, if you're like a very big fan of segregation and killing people because they're different, that's fine with the Jersey folks. Us in New York, we do not like or claim Boulevard Trask as part of the tri-state area. We do not claim it. We do not like it.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. That's a fair rebuking. There's the big Mystique action sequence in the military tent. Features like a young recasted Toad, and he's all scaly. He looks weird. He's got the goggles on. A couple other C-list mutants. I hope I'm not offending any fans of those mutants by saying that they're C-list. You get Stryker, played by Josh Hellman, a young Stryker. He was actually originally cast in Matthew Vaughn's version of the movie to play Juggernaut. And in Matthew Vaughn's version, Juggernaut is the one who breaks Magneto out of prison, not Quicksilver. When they rewrote things, I guess they still liked Josh Hellman. They wanted him involved in the movie. They cast him as Stryker. I think it was a good move. He looks like he could be a young striker. The interesting thing about this, the most interesting thing about this scene, I think, is that it was actually the post-credit scene of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield. They gave a little tease for Days of Future Past.
Yeah, yep. That was very
Which
cool.
is weird to think about now. Like, it's weird to think, obviously, because Marvel owns the X-Men, but it's weird to think like that Sony could put a tease for an X-Men movie at the end of Kraven the Hunter. Or so it's like, what? And I know Kraven's not fucking Spider-Man. More people are seeing Spider-Man. It's just strange to look through a 2024 lens at that.
Definitely. The guy who plays Stryker, is he the guy that you got confused with the guy who plays Stifler? Am I remembering that correctly? Where you were trying to figure out his name? I feel like, and I to be honest, I remember you saying
Sean William Scott Stifler, right?
Yes.
Might have been him.
And I remember you got the two guys confused, and I'm like, what is he talking about? And then I saw this guy, and I go, wait, is that Stifler? And my brain then got confused. I'm like, wait, Robbie, I kind of see where Robbie's coming from now, because I don't remember, like, the actor from that. So then I saw it, I was like, so I'm going to go back in time, and Robbie, even though I didn't say anything, I thought you're crazy. I now understand why you were coming from.
I love this scene where Logan goes to the school, and it's decrepit and the sign is fallen and everything. He's greeted by Hank McCoy at the door, and he's like trying to figure out who he is almost, and he's like, oh my god, you're Beast. He's like, get out of here, because obviously Nicholas Hoult looks a little nerdy and skinny still and stuff. Barges his way in. Great first interaction between them, which leads to us meeting the degenerate rock star version of Charles Xavier. He's just walking around freely. Another scene where I remember watching it for the first time being like, he's walking around. Oh my God, why is he walking around? How is he walking around? We find out that Vietnam was a real breaking point for him. A lot of mutants were drafted, a lot of mutants were killed, and he's basically a drug addict now. He's kind of like a heroin addict. I think it's just a straight up allegory for heroin. He's overusing Hank's serum to cure his mutant abilities, quote unquote, cure his mutant abilities. And he says Magneto's in the prison below the Pentagon for JFK. They go through all of this. And he's kind of reluctant to help Logan until he asks, what makes you think that like Eric will change? You can never change this guy. Like, you're crazy. And Logan has this great cold line where he's like, because the two of you sent me here together. And that's like the ending of the scene. I love that whole sequence.
I love throwing it at the fucking big brain guys. The two big brains.
Lawyered.
Yeah, lawyered by fucking old cigar chomping Logan right there, of all people.
That was another nice thing is Logan, as soon as he gets off the ship in the beginning, lights up a cigar. And I was like, oh, that's nice. It's like almost like a video game introduction scene where they give him like a signature, like a quick animation to do. I was like, that's nice. They give him a cigar right away.
And I also appreciate he's reached a point where he wouldn't smoke on the flight with everyone, where, young, uncouth Logan would have definitely been like, fuck you guys. Have you ever been in a car, and you're probably a little young for this, where I'm sure at this point people like, we're not doing as much, but have you ever been in a car where people just smoke butts in the car?
Brother, my dad used the floor of the passenger side as an ashtray.
Oh my God.
On the floor. It was outrageous. The car smelled like an ashtray. It was insane.
With his kids in the car. Wow, that is
with the kids in the car. Well, I guess just the kid, because I'm so much younger than my siblings. Yeah. And like, he even had moments where like we would get in the car. He'd be like, yeah, I quit smoking a while ago. We'd be like, no, you didn't. We know you didn't. You're lying.
You're smoking a cigarette right now.
In your mouth. You got one in your ear, dude. Like it's a pencil. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, I thought you were going to take me back to some rocker. And I'm like, I am talking to a rock star right here. So maybe he is a rock star. No, yeah. Papa Fox is a goddamn savage with the sticks, man.
He was a savage with it. Yeah. So and Logan, I appreciate Logan for not doing that.
And Hank McCoy had to go and like actually create the no smoking like light that they have on airplanes just for Logan. Like that Blackbird had been around for like 30 years. Like no one ever even thought of smoking on this fucking thing until you, Logan. Now I have to put it up there and put it in.
And he's like, like we're okay with it, Logan, but some of the younger students are just, they've complained about it. They've brought up the statistics. I just think it would be you set a good example. He has to have that like teacher to teacher talk with him.
Yep. And Logan never listened. And then one time Gene just coughed. He's like, never smoking again on the plane. That's my girl. I still have a chance with her if I stop smoking on this plane.
Yeah. And then like views himself as like a noble guy after that too. He's like, and don't forget what I did for all of you. Mystique, meanwhile, discovers a bunch of dead mutant files in Trask's office, and that's pretty much the extent of the scene. She almost gets caught, and it's nice, like, oh, almost get caught, but you just pop in, see Mystique. She's discovering the dead mutants they're, testing on or whatever. But my favorite sequence in this movie is the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes of it. It's the prison break, the Magneto prison break, starting with Logan, Hank, and Charles rolling up on Peter's house, aka Quicksilver. And they're all wearing amazing 70s outfits. They all look like rock stars. When they open the door, they're all wearing the shades and everything. I love that shot. And he's playing ping pong with himself, a great Quicksilver thing. It reminded me of like Mr. Perfect, actually, throwing a football through himself and shit.
Oh, such a good line.
And clearly he steals all the time. He's got shit all over, from ding dongs to TVs to speakers and galore. His basement is just like a kid's dream, basically. And he's thrilled at the prospect of breaking into the Pentagon. He's viewing this as like when they say like you'll get to break into the highest secured prison in the world. He's kind of like, oh shit, I'd like to put that notch in my belt. And the prison break sequence is, in my opinion, a masterclass in how to introduce a character to a franchise, like an already likable franchise with iconic characters. They did so much in this sequence with Quicksilver being a likable character, and Evan Peters did a really good job of being that guy. I feel like they set Pietro up for failure in Age of Ultron, which came out like later this year, maybe a year after this. He was so good in, like, even with the sequence where he's running and, poking things or punching someone and you're waiting for it all to unfold. It's so fucking well done and well shot. Even the Magneto reveal, when you see Michael Fassbender for the first time in this movie, it feels like a big moment. Oh shit, Magneto, even though you've seen the older version of him, and even though you've only seen Magneto in First Class. The line where he's in the elevator with Magneto and he talks about his metal powers and he's like, my mom knew a guy like that.
Yeah.
Like,
great.
That's such a fucking good, like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You know what we're saying here? And a lot of his sequences were actually shot with like practical visual effects. They shot a lot of his running around sequences at 3,600 frames per second. And then we're able to speed them up, slow them down, however they were able to do that. Obviously, the stuff floating in the air was CGI, but I love everything about this. This is what makes the movie so fantastic for me. It's also, when I look back at the movie, it's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. The music, the use of music. I think it's the same year as Guardians came out. That was like a weird, almost a sister movie thing where like he's got his Walkman and his headphones that he likes to listen to. Do you like this as much as I do?
My one note is the slow-mo scene rules so hard all these years later. And it's one of those things that I think of when I think of him in this movie, but I don't really remember any of it. I just remember the water and then like how he saves them. And then just like, although he has them punching themselves and just a little, like, he's just touching it just a bit. He's just showing off. I just love how he shows off, and you appreciate when the mutants can show off with their powers a little bit. So yeah, this held up incredibly. I will say, there is a part of this, though, that has been ruined. Because when I see that face now, I think Ralph Boner. I don't think Quicksilver. And listen, it's so tricky because I do appreciate like the fan servicey stuff, but like WandaVision was in a place where we were just starved for anything, and the fucking pandemic was roaring and whatever. But man, they really just fucked us with that Boner.
Yeah,
they were right in our butts.
Because, like I said, they made him so likable in this. Like,
yeah.
For the WandaVision fans that weren't X-Men fans, maybe they view him as, oh, he's just a variant. Cool. He's played by a famous actor, Evan Peters. This Quicksilver was so well done. They nailed him. This was the comic version we wanted. And I got to say, they even did a pretty good job with him in Apocalypse. Apocalypse is not a great movie. They basically just run this scene back, and they have a slow-mo scene with Quicksilver shot with the fucking, mounted cam on his chest and all that. And it's great. Again, it's great. Like, I watched it again, and I was like, all right, yeah, you could just run that back in every movie he's in. They should have done it in WandaVision.
Yeah, they should have. I actually, to be honest, I forgot how much I like him. I remember he's like kind of a little bit of a punk in this movie or whatever, but I forgot like he is likable, and I forgot how good his like scene is. And now if I rewatch WandaVision, I might like the character more, but I think then it's just going to piss me off more that it's not actually Quicksilver. So it's very tricky in that regard. Also, the reveal about how Magneto's there. You're like, oh, Magneto's there just because he's Magneto. He's a bad guy. No. The JFK assassination reveal. It's like, oh, fuck, the bullet did curve.
Like, you killed JFK? And then the like double twist of like, wait, he killed JFK because the bullet curved? And it's like, oh my God. And then when he hits you with the twist of like, I was trying to save him because he was one of us. You're like, JFK was a mutant?
Yep. Again, history nerd who loves when they then take those historical figures, put them into comic books. That had me melting. And
what was his power? What do you think his power was?
I read what they said it was. They said in like the unpublished, like the backstory, unpublished backstory, he is like super charming, basically, which would be very JFK, sense. Right?
That makes sense, yeah.
Also,
like a little bit of Xavier. Like maybe he's not telekinetic, but he's got that, you know.
One and the same. Let's just say that without me slandering Professor X's name anymore. If there was a young lady at the bar and those two were there, they're pulling out their fucking big guns, and you know,
and they're not pulling out. Am I right?
Hey, definitely not. Yo, I guarantee you, Professor X opened the school because he's like, I probably have like a shitload of mutant babies running around. I have to take care of them one way or another. But I won't like be their dad.
Like that in this movie too, right? Aren't they like, are you someone's dad? And he's like, I sure hope not.
Yeah, sure hope not.
Yeah.
When they break out Professor X, Magneto, and they have like the helmet, obviously, they have the angel thing, they have Havoc's like little thing, and then they have the coin. They got the Sebastian Shaw coin. Fucking metal.
Also, there's a scene in the midst of the prison break sequence that maybe it's just my brain, I swear was inspired by A New Hope. The scene where Charles and Eric are like talking to the cops and trying to like play it cool before Logan's eventually like, fuck it. And then like, you know, throw shit at him. It feels so like everything's fine over here.
How are you?
How are you? You know, and then eventually he fucking shoots it. Like that feels so Star Wars A New Hope to me. And I love that about it, obviously. Then you get the plane scene right after this. This is such a good stretch of the movie. The middle of the movie is so strong, where Magneto and Professor X are going at it like an old fucking married couple. And Magneto's bringing the plane down as they're fighting. Hank is just like trying to fly it. He has got no control. Everyone else is looking at each other like, are we about to die? Like he's going to level it out eventually, right? And they remind me in this scene of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans in the way that they're able to snap right back into having legitimate viewpoints on both sides that you understand, and having complete conviction in their voices when they're acting. And the chemistry between them is perfect. Like they were made to be on screen together in the same way I think Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. were. And again, they both make actually compelling points. They both seem to believe their points. So points to the writers for making that a very balanced scene.
I love when Robbie says that, you know, their viewpoints where it's like, yeah, he knew who killed Iron Man's mom and dad. That's Robbie just saying that. Well, we won't. Hey, I'm not
under mind control.
I'm not going to go into this now, Robbie. It's kind of like, I'm not going to be the Professor X to your Magneto here, just like Cap is Magneto in my mind to my Professor X and Iron Man. Besides that, the airplane scene does hammer home how fucked up their relationship is. And it's kind of funny when you look at it in these movies, you look at the original X-Men, and then even like the cartoon, which just wrapped, and it's like, it's truly like oil and water, but they go together. So it's also like chocolate and peanut butter when things are going right. It's fucking so weird. It's awesome. It's just so well written.
Meanwhile, Mystique. She goes and meets this dude that's connected to Trask and all that, and she does the typical Mystique thing of, you know, bringing him up to the hotel room and kind of, you know, romancing him a little bit to the point where at the last moment she changes. When she changes to Mystique, this guy looks at her so disrespectfully. He looks at her like the biggest freak he's ever seen in his life. Like, this is a world where mutants exist. Like, maybe you haven't seen one like her before, but I was happy she killed her when he looked at her like that. I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah. Was it the Vietnamese general or something like that? I don't know if he was a general or what he was.
She had to be at the meeting that they were eventually going to do in France. She had to be in the room for that to, you know, attempt her assassination.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in Vietnam, maybe you didn't have mutants with this kind of power. But yeah, you don't feel bad about that guy. You're not supposed to feel bad about him. Kind of a dick.
And she does impersonate him at the meeting, but Magneto, Charles, Logan, and Hank get in there to stop her just in time. Logan starts freaking out, and he's going in and out of the future, and he's got the memories of Stryker and you see some stuff. I loved that too when they show some Jean stuff later on, the Stryker stuff showing the previous movies. For whatever reason, maybe it's a cheap nostalgia thing. It does make it feel bigger to me. It makes it feel like the culmination of all of these movies when you're actually referencing them.
It's kind of like when you get a flashback in a comic book too. It's like, oh, I remember that panel, and
exactly.
There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is very comic book friendly, which I appreciate.
Do you think, not that we would have the answer to this, but do you think when they show like Brian Cox as Stryker, he gets paid for that, right? He's in that movie.
So. Yeah, I think
that's a good deal. When you just get the call and they're like, by the way, we're going to show 2 seconds of your performance from 10 years ago. Here's a check.
Like, fuck off. Give me 20% more. He's now Logan Roy in my mind. Like, I can't believe it's happened with an established actor like that who I've seen in so much things, but he's forever Logan Roy.
But he's Logan Roy in real life, too.
That's true.
Did you see his quotes about Napoleon? He was like, Joaquin Phoenix sucked in that movie. I would have been much better. He's like, oh, shit. He's not afraid to speak his mind.
Quick tangent. I said it at the time, and I stand by it. All that fucking Napoleon movie did was make me want to watch a good Napoleon movie. That movie could have been so fucking good, and it was so fucking bad.
I won't watch it based on what everyone said about it. I think I would just be bored by it.
Little trust tree right now too. I turned on Netflix a couple weeks ago, and I saw it was like the poster for Unfrosted. I'm like, oh, that is a couple interesting actors. Maybe I'll check that out. I'm like, oh, it's about Pop-Tarts? I love Pop-Tarts. And then I got all the reviews. I saw Stephen Shea loved it. I saw like everyone else hated it. I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from that one.
Yeah.
I mean, what we need an X-Men movie where they go back to Napoleon's time. That would be 2 birds, 1 stone.
Logan fighting in that war, I'd be down for that. That'd be fucking sick. Quick tangent. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I thought you were going to say you went on Netflix and saw the poster for Madam Web, which is what I did this past week. Madam Web is now on Netflix. And I said on the podcast, I'm boycotting the movies in theaters, but if you send them to streaming, I'll watch them. I'll get nice and high and watch them. And that's exactly what I did. I had a pretty good time with it. It wasn't quite as so bad it's good as I wanted it to be. Like there were multiple points throughout the movie where you're chuckling, but for most of it, you're just confused. Not in terms of like, I don't understand what's happening, in terms of like, I don't understand how this got made. Every single scene with the bad guy is like a scene out of The Room where none of his dialogue matches his mouth.
So
and
weird.
It's and it's not only that it didn't match his mouth, it's like half the movie was shot with him like this. So like, you can't even see, you're just looking at the back of his head, and it's like it's just bizarre. But if you are like me and enjoy a bad movie and chuckle at bad line delivery and stuff like that, so bad it's good kind of stuff, I think it's worth watching on Netflix. It's 2 hours. That's the other thing that kind of sucks. I wish it was an hour and a half. But yeah, every time a character reveals like a tragic backstory in Madam Web, it is hysterical. Like someone will be like, oh, my mom died when I was 4. And the line is delivered so poorly, you're laughing. It's crazy. I got back into X-Men now.
That's on the list. I finished that Roadhouse the other day. A+ all around. Incredible. For anyone,
and it's getting a sequel. Shout out McGregor and Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. For anyone who just wants to have fun and like not worry about every little thing of a film, have some fun in Roadhouse on Prime. It's so fucking fun.
There you go. There's your recommendations. Now back to the X-Men. Magneto goes to shoot Mystique. She jumps out the building, or Hank tries to like stop Magneto. He winds up curving the bullet, so it still hits her in the calf.
Awesome.
The second movie in which James McAvoy was in a scene where they curve a bullet. He was in Wanted. I love that movie.
Okay.
Kind of a bizarre fun fact for you.
Was that Angelina Jolie?
It was. Morgan Freeman. It's got a sneaky good cast. Chris Pratt, a young Chris Pratt, is McAvoy's like douchebag roommate coworker. He smacks him with a fucking keyboard and then the key spell out "fuck you" in the air. Great stuff. But he later drags Mystique by the bullet in her leg, which is
gnarly metal,
very gnarly. And everyone is seeing it. They're filming the big mutant fight. I like the almost Super 8 style like format change when they go to like the crowd footage and stuff. Beast is drowning Magneto for a while before he gets like hung up by the wrists, like he's an animal for them to take pictures of, like he's like King Kong in captivity or something.
Yes.
Logan is slipping in and out of his past self still. Charles is like, you're just on acid. You're on an acid trip. You're okay. He's trying to convince him he's fine. And Kitty Pryde eventually gets it under control. But Trask is able to use all of the hysteria over this mutant fight as a way to get President Nixon to approve the Sentinel program. And I like that we get a guy playing Nixon in the movie.
Yeah, they have
instead
the
of just
little.
like a President Kelly or like a random nameless whatever.
Yeah, you have the whole JFK stuff, and now the Nixon stuff. They have a little recording in the office that you're like, oh, they're doing the tapes and they're turning it off. Just so as again a history guy, uh, the like you said, the filming is so cool because that's something Darren Ravel would have posted on his Twitter. Be like, remember
Yeah.
when Mystique was out in mutants back
This
in
day in
1973?
1973.
And just Magneto, how he's just so like he doesn't even think when he's doing stuff. He's just dragging her by the calf. The fact Magneto is. How do I say this without coming across? Like I have the big purple guy who wiped out half.
You
the
came
universe.
at me for shouting out Jersey over Dinklage. You better watch your words here.
Magneto could just fuck everything up and everyone up and just like murder the world essentially. And he has amazing restraint. Can we just say that? Like Beast tries to drown his ass and he's like, I'm just gonna like tie you up and not murder you.
That's a good point. Well, later on, even with Logan, like I'm not gonna skip ahead. We'll get to
But
that.
it's like
he shows restraint to a degree, yeah.
Yes, it's like when your dad plays you in basketball and he lets you score a couple points or whatever. He's not just like he's not doing the loud Sean backing you down 17 times. No, he's not going to let you win.
He'll let you in the game, yeah.
Yes, exactly, and that's Magneto's essentially doing that. It's once he has the helmet and Charles can't stop him. It's like everyone's fucked if he wanted to, especially a guy with his past. And it's like you can't blame him. Going down a very, very dark path here with Magneto. I'm going to stop giving Magneto props right now.
The scene where he gets the helmet back, though, that scene is shot almost more comic booky than any other scene in the movie in all the silhouettes they use. The silhouette of just like Michael Fassbender in the hat that we would always see like Ian McKellen wear and stuff like that. I love that with the glowing blue background and stuff. I don't love the train sequence where he gets the steel and infuses it into the Sentinels. Like, I'm fine with the idea of that. It feels so video gamey when they show like the tracks going into the Sentinel bones. I hate to say it. That's what lost him the Oscar to Interstellar right there. Not that they were going to win without that, but like that scene. And there's maybe one other scene later on where it looks really, really video gamey. And it doesn't ruin the movie. It doesn't ruin the scene, but it does take me out of it a little bit.
Just him doing his own stitches, like that's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, what did you think about when he's doing the metal balls twirling around? I like it, but then it seems it's like a little corny at some points too.
I think they're trying to shout out like the Ian McKellen. They're trying to like show you he's eventually going to transition. But I do love the memes of like he basically looked like Michael Fassbender in the 90s. And then by 2000, he looked like Ian McKellen. Like he has president ears, like real quick president years.
That'll do it, man. Though it's like you live through the Holocaust. You're in a mutant war your whole life, essentially. Like that'll.
It all caught up with him quick.
If you have to retcon something, that's how you do it.
Yeah. Mystique finds Magneto. He tells her everything, and she fucking like basically boom roasts him and walks away. She's like, "Yeah, that's why you suck. You don't stop with killing one person. You just want to kill everyone." Walked right away from him, and it's one of those things where again he shows some restraint. He lets her walk away, where it's like he'll be back later.
He's the shark from Jaws. He's just taking his time.
Meanwhile, Xavier starts getting his powers back because he's kind of going through withdrawals, but he collapses into the mansion and decides to stay off the drugs, go back to the old him. Oh, Lord, forgive me. Don't let me go back to the old me. He literally blows the dust off the Cerebro helmet, puts it on, blows a fuse. They're like, we got to go flip the breaker. What the fuck happened there, Charles? Wolverine gives him a pep talk. And another one of the best scenes in the movie here, he invites him into his own head. He said, come into my head. Whatever, I could handle it. I could handle you in my head. He sees a lot of the genes suffering from Logan's past, or I guess his future, Logan's past. And Logan has this great line. He says, we need you to hope, or no, this isn't Logan's line. He has him communicate with his future self. So we get the scene where James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart are talking to each other. And Patrick Stewart says to James McAvoy, his younger self, we need you to hope again. And as a New Hope guy, as a Star Wars guy, I love hope as the narrative or the storyline of a movie. Keep the hope alive. And that's exactly what he does. He finds Raven through the Cerebro. He actually come back through people all over the airport. Another Professor X power that I love when
I dig that.
Up to you and it's his, not his voice, but his voice coming through them. And she turns him down as well. And unfortunately, I think she gives such a stale delivery in this scene. Like, I really like Jennifer Lawrence. Like, I'm a Hunger Games fan. I like her in a bunch of other movies. I don't know if she was just bored with Mystique already at this point. She's so bad in the scene. It's weird. And she's headed to Washington, D.C. They do figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And Hank has like DVR. He's like, I have these 3 TVs set up to record any news about Paris. Did he invent DVR? I think he did.
I think they kind of like do like a wink, wink, like, hey, you can do it, you can do it all. Yeah, it's definitely a wink, wink at DVR.
Then they have this ceremony to unveil the Sentinels, and this kind of kicks off the third act, the big finale of the movie. It's a quick ceremony. They show the Sentinels. They do look purple. I like that they at least included that in the 70s version of them. Charles freezes Mystique just as she's about to, pose as somebody else and commit the assassination. And Magneto, meanwhile, he's bringing a whole goddamn baseball field over there. He drops it around the White House, which I always loved, like enclosing the White House. I don't know how structurally it would have stayed together with him just lifting the metal, the concrete coming with it. I don't know how that would have worked, but it ain't that kind of movie, kid. In the word Harrison Ford. And he takes over all the Sentinels, of course. He makes them go bananas. They're shooting everyone. The future X-Men are in immediate danger as well, where this is the low point for our heroes in the movie. Storm is able to delay the danger a little bit. She charges up Bishop. That's very badass, but they both get killed. Magneto gets stabbed, and he kind of like goes to board everything up the room where Logan is. He's like dying in a room with Charles Xavier, which is heavy. It's big. Colossus dies. Sunspot dies. Blink dies. Things are not going well. They're probably going to come around by the end of the movie, but there's like 20 minutes left, and you're like, how quickly are they going to have to come around?
You do get that pit in your stomach when you're watching all these heroes that you love.
Storm is the worst one too, right?
Yeah,
that's the worst death.
Definitely the worst. But when Magneto gets like hit hard, you're just like, oh fuck, anything's on the table now. Then once Storm, it's like, oh,
the other thing is like, is this the Magneto redemption? Are they going to kill him off for good here to be like the mutants are surviving because of Magneto? You start going through all the possibilities in your head of what could happen here.
Yeah. Would you say the stadium scene is a top 5 scene in the X-Men movies?
Him bringing the stadium over?
Yeah. Because like when I think of the old, like the prequel movies, in First Class, this is one of the first, I think of this and The Coin. They're the 2 scenes I think of. The
best X-Men scenes. This, The Coin, Nightcrawler in the
White House.
I love Magneto in the church. That's like, I don't know if that's for everyone or if that's just for me in X3. It could be top 5 scene. I would probably put Quicksilver's prison break sequence above this personally.
That's up there too. Okay, I'm going to say for me, I'm going to say top 5, maybe even top 3, just because it's such a creative take, right?
It's better than the Golden Gate Bridge, which is interesting because he kind of does it with the Golden Gate Bridge in X3. But it's like, oh, he's moving a big thing. For some reason, enclosing the White House around a baseball stadium is way cooler to me.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's metal. It's got a metal in its own.
It's fucking metal.
Did you also catch they said something about Robert Oppenheimer?
Oh, they did, didn't they? Yeah.
And I did the little bit like, I know what that means now. I didn't know what that meant 10 years ago.
Obviously, yeah. Shit, wow.
Like I Am Death or something like that. So it was.
I would love a CGI like put Cillian Murphy in this movie now. And open up the Oppenheimer cinematic universe.
Just smoking a butt.
Yeah. Then the way young Magneto here, he twists the metal bars into Wolverine, nasty. The way they're going in and out of his, bones everywhere. He pulls the entire safe room out of the White House as well, which is badass. He's just like, I know, like, what are you doing in that safe room? You're in a metal safe room. It's Magneto. Like, do you know Magneto, magnets? He turns all the cameras on himself and he gives like a "We Are the Future" speech. Another great moment. If you were to, count this whole stadium sequence as the moment, great Magneto moment, and feels so his character to make that speech and want the world watching. They showed Toad as like a fry cook or a chef or something, like watching along. Who was so desperate for an employee that they hired that fucking guy? That freak.
Whoa, this Jersey just going off the rails.
I'm sorry, he's a freak. Toad is an absolute freak. This Toad specifically, Ray Park's Toad, you could get away with it. This Toadie's his face is bubbling at all times.
I do not support this kind of slander toward people that are just different than us, Robbie. I do not support this. This is not
I know
your
this
views,
is
not the views of
trash.
Barstool
This is the
Sports.
Jersey Trask in me coming out. Wolverine's thrown into water. He starts drowning. The so-called President Nixon steps out, prepared to sacrifice himself. And Magneto, this guy is smart, but he's not so smart because this dummy falls for this. He gets shot in the neck by Mystique. It's actually Mystique, of course, and he gets shot in the neck, not fatally, not right in the middle of the neck, kind of a glancing blow. But right as she goes to like do it again or shoot, she goes to shoot Trask. Charles freezes her right on time. She puts the gun down, and the future is safe. So as soon as she puts the gun down, everything that's happening to our X-Men in the future, they just vanish, gone. So we can assume, all right, this has probably worked. And Charles lets them go. Mystique and Eric has hope. He tells Hank, of course, the theme that he learned from his older self. And the movie ends with a very cool scene of Wolverine waking up in the X Mansion, confused. He sees Rogue. He sees Bobby. We see the white in Wolverine's hair, so we know this is our Wolverine. He's an older Wolverine. We're not doing a flashback here. See Kitty Pryde and Colossus teaching together. Kelsey Grammer's Beast makes a nice cameo. He's like, "Oh, you're just waking up, Logan? Oh, my stars and garters." Walks past, whatever. Storm, and finally Jean Grey, which was the big shock. That was the big. Everyone went in the movie theater. You know, like she's wearing your typical Jean red, the Jean red hair and everything. And we're in a new future. We're in a new reality that they have set up to retcon X3, basically. They're like, we're sorry about that. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Everyone's still alive. Charles realizes it. And when he has that face, like when he kind of like composes himself, he goes, "Welcome back, Logan." It's so good. So perfectly Charles Xavier. We see Stryker, quote unquote Stryker, and his team finding Logan in the water in 73, but of course it's actually Mystique, so we could assume she let him go, I guess, at some point. Now, the thing some people have brought up about the ending, there was a Wolverine in this universe that was a teacher. So, like, when he woke up in this universe, does that Wolverine cease to exist? And he is that Wolverine? Does he have that Wolverine's memories? Did he kill that Wolverine by coming back? Another one of those things where, if I'm being completely honest with our listeners, I just prefer not to think about it too much.
Yes, I was going to say the easiest way to go about that is to just not think about it at all.
It's not that kind of movie, kid.
Yeah,
just enjoy the happy ending.
I had read that initially, like the Stryker thing was like, oh fuck, now this is how he gets him for the Weapon X program, and then it's like, no, it's just Mystique, and I think they changed it because it was kind of like a sad ending for Wolverine in that sense.
Yeah,
he's going to get tortured, but
it's
like
a little weird though because he's Weapon X in Apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't like to think of that either. It's like I'm just going to make believe that was Stryker. Stryker's a fucking dick. We already hate his guts. So just like that, it happened. It happened.
I thought the Stryker stuff I thought was weird to include. To be honest, I thought a better ending was him waking up in the mansion and like welcome back, cut to black on that.
He was just kind of always like with his little shit-eating face, and he's just, I guess, a henchman essentially. So yeah, I didn't like that at all. But I understand they're trying to like establish him because he's such a big part of the old movies. I also read that Jean Grey, you can see, I don't know if this is true, people just make it up. She's in the park looking up at Magneto when he's moving the stadium.
Oh, really?
Like a young Jean Grey. So I don't know if that's legit. And then there was an unwritten back. I read this online. There was an unwritten backstory. A producer talked about that. Trask was a part of a group responsible for attempting to assassinate JFK, and that he also had, if any soldier had a higher than anticipated kill number, he would be subjected to Trask to figure out if they were mutant. So there was like a whole thing where he's, lining up those mutants and piling them to do his tests. And
I liked his little mutant detector, like the scenes where you start holding your breath of like, oh no, there's a mutant in the room and they know it. Like that's like good stuff. That's good for tension.
Yeah, I also love, like you said, like I love Magneto fell for the old Mystique trick that like everyone falls for like 5 different times, and it kind of made me like, I don't want to say it. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the show. But I understand what Jose says about Secret Invasion, the comics now. Because like, if there's 1,000 Mystiques, because Mystique always plays the goddamn trick on you, and I sniffed it out in the movie theater. I was like, that's not Nixon, that's Mystique Nixon. But if anyone could be Mystique, it's a real fucking mindfuck. And the fact they come out years later, so I wish they did that better. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. And then you get a post-credit scene that sets up X-Men Apocalypse that I've totally forgot about this post-credit scene because even seeing En Sabah Nur, I was like, oh shit, like we saw him in X-Men 97 last week as the post-credit scene. And I remember seeing that and being like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, whatever. We get him here as a young Apocalypse, like truly young, like he looks like a kid. And in the background, you see like the 4 dudes on horses, which is it is a cool shot. The 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse in the background. It's unfortunate that they were able to cast someone as good as fucking Oscar Isaac and then give him pretty much nothing to work with. And that movie is, it's worth it for, like I said, like the Quicksilver scene. And then there's the one scene with Magneto losing his daughter in the forest and going ham on everyone. That's amazing. Pretty much the rest of the 75% of the movie is trash.
Yeah, we don't. I'm gonna. How about this? How about the next season of X-Men 97? We just make that the next movie. Like it's the same kind. We're meeting Apocalypse for the first time, and that's how I'm gonna like. Oh no, Age of Apocalypse was awesome. It was a cartoon made in 2026. We're gonna say. I can't imagine it's ready next. You think it's ready next year? I know it's written and a good chunk of it is done, but
I think so because they said they're editing now. Yeah.
If they get the composer, he could probably edit it tomorrow. That fucking
yeah.
Show off.
Did you prepare a fast food review for this one?
I'm between a few right now, so let me hear yours.
I have one that I feel okay about, and it goes back to how I felt on opening night with my friends. I'm going to compare this to the Burger King chicken fries. Really good. I really like chicken fries, but when they came back, I feel like people were talking about them like they were the greatest fast food item ever created. And I tried them, and I was like, those were great, but like they were the chicken fries I love and remember. They weren't like, I'm not like mind blown. I've never had anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So while I love them, I just don't think they're the GOAT, but really good product.
So mine was, and it's you know me, I try to get like fancy with it. It's the extra crispy chicken from KFC. I'm personally what's your favorite piece of chicken here, Bob? I'm a breast guy.
I think I'm a drumstick guy, to be honest with you.
That's fair. I'm a white meat person. You're a dark meat person.
You know, it's weird. It's going to sound hypocritical. I'm a white meat person, but I think the breast is almost like it's like, I don't like eating a breast. I like just being able to eat a drumstick real quick, clean it off, and I'm done. If you were to cut up the meat, I would like the white meat better.
Sure. Okay. No, that's fair. The kids had the drumsticks are the biggest hits with the kids. They just love just chomping on them. It's like a cartoon character. Like, I have no problem with that. I'm a diehard white meat guy. But with like the KFC original, that's kind of like the old school X-Men. But I think the extra crispy, you could just fucking the good thing with the extra crispy
guy.
Yeah, you get the extra crispy. And then back when I was on keto, you could just rip the skin off. And if you just eat the chicken, it's pretty much keto friendly because as long as you're not eating all the, breaded stuff, it's pretty good. So I just think this thing plays on the inside, plays on the outside. And it's,
you rip the mystique off and then you eat it.
I am happy that like I wasn't going crazy back in the day. This time I tried to be like, oh, it's not so bad, but it is very meanwhile-y. I'm very happy you saw that too. So those are two pretty big heavy hitters: the chicken fries and the KFC extra crispy chicken.
Yeah, we both went with chicken. Mine's in a similar place, similar but different, like Charles and Xavier.
There we go.
Charles and Xavier, like Charles and Eric.
Also, this Magnus stuff, I don't like hearing them calling them Magnus. It just feels weird. His name's
you don't like the Magnus? I like a Magnus every now and then.
I don't know.
I like Eric more than Magnus, but every now and then I like a Magnus.
I feel like throw again. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Mix it up. I like when they call like Superman, like when you call him Superman or Clark too much, like throw in a Kal-El. Give us one of those.
Yes, yeah, I do too. I like that. My guy.
Your guy, exactly.
Halfway
love Kevin story too. Halfway through shooting, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Smith's legendary story about him writing Superman. If you've never seen it, so worth looking up on YouTube or wherever it's found. But he talks about going to John Peters' house and John Peters laying down and going like this and going, all right, read me the script. And he starts reading him the script and he's like, Kal-El does this, Kal-El does that when he's back on Krypton and whatnot. And he's like, hold on. Who the fuck is Kal-El? And he's like, it's Superman. That's who you hired me to write a movie about, actually. Classic stuff. I know James Gunn isn't in that same boat, though. James Gunn knows who Kal-El is. He's going to deliver on that, just like I believe Deadpool and Wolverine is going to deliver on a level that brings Marvel back Shout out Marvel Jesus, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, Wade Wilson. And thanks for joining us on another stop on the way to the road to Deadpool. What do we got hashtag wise? We got a fun hashtag for this week.
Let's see.
There's something Days of Future Past related, funny line. Hashtag Logan on acid.
Yes, I like that. Logan on acid. That's good.
Hashtag Logan on acid, which may exist for, there might be someone went to a music festival with their friend named Logan and he was on acid. Maybe they hashtagged it before, but hashtag Logan on acid. If you made it to the end of this episode, enjoy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week for, I guess, just a news item mailbag episode. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Maybe we watch Logan on acid. All right, listen.
we can't watch Logan on acid. We would be fucked up.
If this trends on top 10 on Twitter, trends.
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Deal. Top 10 trends. Yeah, we'll
top
do
10
acid.
Trends worldwide on Twitter. We will do watch Logan on acid. That would be the most. We won't do a podcast. We're just gonna stream ourselves watching it on acid.
Yeah. But if that doesn't happen, we probably won't do Logan next week. So don't prepare for that.
Right. Or you can watch it on acid if you want your own time. That's your choice.
Memorial Day weekend, you could get wild, but be safe, everyone. Be safe. We want you in the basement next week as well. All right, we'll see you then.